Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. This is something a little bit different. That Anabel, I forgot this is married. Anabel and I thought we wanted to do something, and so we thought we would do a chat show. It was going to originally be called Tarts, but we thought, don't know about that. So it's Tony and Anabel's talk show. So it's Tats. It's Tats. Oh, typical. He has to get in on things, don't you? So what we thought we would do is we would just discuss some points. We've got 3 points we want to talk about. We will talk about your issues, your problems. So if you've got anything you want us to talk about, pop them into the comment section and we will pick them up. For future shows, if you have an issue that's burning in the back of your mind, like what do I do with my career? The dog has found his squeaky toy now while I'm live on across Facebook and YouTube. I don't believe it. Yeah, what should I do if my dog gets a squeaky toy while I'm in the middle of a talk show? Those sort of issues, drop them in and we will think about them, consider them, and we will talk about them live on the next show, which I think we're going to try and do monthly, but we'll post it on our Facebook pages. Hello, Julie Dallison. Hello, Lisa. My sister is online watching. So, do you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, Anabel, about what you do and why you thought this would be a good idea?
Hello, everybody. My name's Anabel, and I've been friends with Tony for, at least 22 years now, eh, Tony?
Yeah, considering we're only 20, I'm 25 and you're 22.
And I am eternally 22. So Tony and I have been good friends for a long time. Tony, I do love your cup.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Gorgeous.
Very elegant.
And Tony and I would often find ourselves sometimes putting the world to rights, or more often than not, Tony would find himself giving me some great life advice. And occasionally, I'd give him some of my straight talking advice. And somewhere in the middle, we would always meet, wouldn't we, Tony? We
would. But the universe has been conspiring for many, many years for us to meet, has it not, Anabel?
It has. Yes, it has. Absolutely.
Yes. When we first met, we started talking about things we liked. We both love music. We both love Michael Jackson and different things. And we found out we have been at so many concerts and different events at the same time, but never ever managed to meet until we were sat in an office and I walked past her desk and she looked fed up and I was fed up and we started talking and we've been great friends ever since. Anabel had some inspirational cards, so we thought for the first show, just to start things off, we would pick 3 of these cards at random and talk about the points that inspire us about them. So please feel free to join in the conversation. We love it. As people who've seen my other chat shows that I've done with on the spiritual side of things will know we love conversations. So the first one says, if I can see it, what is the most courageous thing I've done and how did it make me feel? Anabel.
Tony. Okay, so obviously you and I had a little bit of heads up on this question before we started talking to everyone. So I have made a few notes, and do forgive me if I look like I'm squinting. It's just being 22 now, my eyes are a little bit dodgy. So I think the most courageous thing I have done, of which aren't too many really, is I stopped being the victim. And I stopped blaming others for my state of mind or the situation I found myself in or the issue that I was dealing with. And this was the most important factor, is I stopped avoiding that action, that required action that was needed, or avoiding the conversation, or even avoiding the decision. And so that in itself, I found to be incredibly liberating. But it's a lesson that takes a number of experiences till eventually you get to the point where you say to yourself, what am I thinking? Why is this happening to me, playing the victim?
Yeah.
But in saying, what am I thinking? I am actually accepting my part, my responsibility for being in that situation, that event, that issue, that decision. And then realizing that, and that took a lot of time, and that took a lot of Tony time as well.
Oh, yes.
At least 20
many discussions and things.
Yes. But in acknowledging that, I started to feel quite liberated and then empowered. So that to me has been one of the most courageous sort of things to admit that changed my behaviour.
Yeah.
What about you, Tony?
I completely agree with that, actually. That could be one of mine, but the most courageous thing I've done was actually to stop believing what other people said about me. To stop accepting the roles other people wanted of me, and to think, no, I want to trust myself. I want to like myself, and to just make that decision that, no, I don't believe that. You know, I am not that person. I'm not playing that part anymore. Like yourself, it's not being a victim as such. It's just learning to be myself and accept myself, which is...
And be kind to yourself. I think that was the change in you was being kind to you. You know, you being kind.
I was going to say, you went through that journey with me, didn't you? And it was like, no, just stop it. I remember a conversation where you said to me, you've talked about all of this, but what is that? What do you think? And no, that's not right for you. I think it was about, like you said, being kind to yourself, trusting yourself, and being true to you, which I suppose links into what you were saying about yours, which was being true to you and just trust you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And be empowered by the freedom it gives you to walk on that path. It's scary. It's absolutely scary, because while you're being what other people want you to be, there's no responsibility on you to make those decisions, those life choices. Alan Acton, who's a reverend in the New Christian Spiritualist Society, has just put a comment up. I don't know if you can see it there, Anabel.
I'm trying to do.
Yeah, but your soul isn't. And Jessica Rayner's just said she's on that journey and it's not easy and you're working hard on it. It is really hard work. And sometimes you find yourself thinking, Jessica, no, I'll just go back to those old behaviors. The same with Anabel. I'll go back to those old behaviors because that's easy. And it is. That's the easy choice. The hardest thing to do is to stand up on your own 2 feet and say, no, that's not what I want.
And it's bit by bit. It doesn't happen overnight. And I find in being kind to yourself, you will revert to old behaviours. I did. You did.
Yeah.
You know, we're human beings. We are perfectly imperfect. So be kind to yourself.
Yeah, and I still do sometimes find myself thinking, actually, no, I'm reverting back to type. And that's not good.
But that's a type, Tony, that other people have dictated.
It is. It is.
Not you, not your type.
No. And it is hard sometimes when people question what you want to do. And it is really hard when you start having conversations with people and you're saying, but this is what I'm going to do. But why do you want to do that? Like, I'm studying to become a reverend at the minute. And a lot of people have said to me, but why do you want to do it? And it's like, it's something I have to do for me. And it's hard to sometimes bat off those questions. And they do sometimes make you look back on yourself and think, but why am I doing it? Is it something I really want to do? And you've got to trust yourself and stop that overthinking of things, I find.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And yet, Tony, because I've known you for all the time that I have known you, I've commented to you that this is the happiest that I have ever seen you, the most at peace I have
yeah,
seen you in yourself. So in that, I'm hoping it's reinforcing your, that you've made the right decision and that you
yeah,
should keep following that instinct.
yeah. No, that's not the one I wanted. That's the one I wanted. People just commenting that they're on that path and they do.
Which reminds me of being a nun. Me, a
Yeah.
nun.
If you knew Anabel like I know Anabel.
The next time we meet, you can see my Prosecco stash. Of empty bottles, I'm afraid.
Yeah. And Jessica Rain is just saying that's great advice. It is just that. It's because both Anabel and myself have lived a life and lots of stuff. I'll call it stuff. There's other words beginning with S that you could say. We've had so much stuff thrown at us by people, and sometimes jointly as well, because Anabel and I have had to stand together and stand up for what we believe in against people who have put us in some difficult positions, and Anabel knows what I'm talking about.
We could do an entire show on that, couldn't we, Tony?
Yeah, just that one event or that one period in our lives.
Yeah.
But those were the times that have given us experience, and we've learned lessons and life lessons from those times, and we've thought, no, this is something we're not going to stand up for. And you learn these things as you go through life. And if we can save some people from going through those things, then that's a positive for us, I think. Let's have a look at another one.
Another one, okay.
Yeah. What is my instinct telling me to do?
Oh, good one.
At this moment in time, my instinct, actually, it's telling me to do lots and lots of things. My instinct is telling me to, again, be kind to myself and those I love, especially in these difficult times. Actually, my instinct at the minute is telling me to drive 100 and something miles to see my dad, because my dad isn't very well. He's got illnesses that mean his life's not going to be as long as we thought it was going to be. And I want to be with him, and I want to see him, and I want to tell him everything's going to be all right. And I can't do that for lots and lots of reasons. But I want to say, at the minute, personally, my instinct is telling me to stay on the path I'm on and to follow the journey that God and Spirit have laid out for me, which, again, is scary because I don't know where it's going to go. So it's just trust. Yeah, that's what my instinct's telling me to do, to trust myself and to trust those around me who I know are being kind for me and have the best of intentions for me. Over to you.
So I think you and I have been talking about doing this now for almost as long as we've known one another, in one guise or another.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity arose to do it sometime this week as a test, if you like, to see if anybody thought that we were remotely at all talking anything of sanity.
Yeah, talking any sensible.
My instinct was to trust you on this. So that's what I think my instinct's telling me right now. But more generally around instinct, and again, I just wrote a few thoughts down before we went live. I'm a firm believer, and I say this a lot to people, is trust your instinct, because your instinct is on your side. It's that inner voice inside of you, and it's informed by those values that you've been brought up with. And the one thing I think about instinct is that it's incredibly thirsty for knowledge. So trust your instinct, listen to it, but then, get that knowledge about what that instinct's telling you and test it. So if it's the case, you know, I'm not suggesting that we should be encouraging people to prejudge events or people, but if
No.
you're not sure about a person, but you have to say, like, work with them, listen to that instinct and maybe just pay attention to that person a little bit more. And it might be, actually, I didn't realize the reason why you were being so quiet is that you've got things going off in your life. It's not because you didn't like me.
Yeah.
And therefore, your instinct is growing in knowledge. It's growing in experience. So we should listen to our instinct, but we should also challenge it, and we should feed it with knowledge, evidence. We should explore those instincts.
That's an important word you've just said there, Anabel. Evidence.
Mm.
Always make decisions about people and situations based on evidence, because I think that's important. Because, like you said, we've met people in our lives who we've both sort of in meetings gone, ooh.
Yeah.
We'll put a bubble around them and package them up and leave them stood over there, and we'll come back to that one later.
And that was the exact phrase that we would use.
Yeah. We'll put that over there and we'll come back to it later when we think a little bit more about it. And the other thing I learned off Anabel,
other than Prosecco,
other than we'll go to that champagne bar in Covent Garden and sit overlooking, which was wonderful, and put the world to rights as we do when we get together, was don't go off people's actions, not their words.
Judge a person by their actions, not their words. You know, I always feel that a person's actions really reinforces their values. And that's not to set me apart from other people or place them on a higher level or a lower level. It's about saying, you know, are the values that I hold very dear and important, are they important to you? And if they're not, why is that? Because it may inform me differently. It doesn't necessarily mean I won't like them or I won't get on with them, but our instincts should be interested in knowing more about that.
Yeah.
And we should explore that.
Yeah, that is true, because there's been many occasions where I've been talking to people and what they say is very nice and very interesting and engaging for me. But then you see them doing things and you think, hang on, that doesn't marry up.
Their words are not aligned with their actions.
Yeah, and that to me rings alarm bells and says, where do I put this person in my life? Because I've got to engage with them on a level, but I don't want them in my inner circle. There are very few people in my inner circle, Anabel being one of them. But then there are other people that I hold a bit further away, and I just keep a guard around them a bit. And Anabel gave me a wake-up call a few times with people by saying, yes, Tony, but what they are saying and what they are doing are two different things. So just be careful. And she's always been very true, very true. And it galls me sometimes, you know, and I'm going to have to ring her now and say, you were right.
It winds me up. It winds me up, but it's because I have played instinctively throughout my life, attention to my instincts, and then I've learned to challenge the instinct just enough. And often I am wrong about things, and I change my view, and that informs my growth, the growth of my instinct, that inner person, that inner soul, that inner voice. It informs my values. You think you touched on something there, Tony? Do you mind me expanding a little bit?
No, go on.
About, you know, the people that you surround yourself with and their words and their actions being aligned. You know, we often find ourselves in lots of different types of relationships with people you work with, you live next door to, or, you know, people in your personal life, and what they say and what they do are very, very different. And the handling of that all the time is really tricky. And it's something from very minor to, I'll put kettle on next time, and they never do, and it drives you mad, to somebody who says that they love you, but all that you actually feel is hurt, and trying to to resonate that. They're very difficult things.
They are.
So,
and in the latter example you've just given is very important as well, because I love you is a very easy thing to say. It's a very easy thing. It's three little words. But to demonstrate that and to mean that from your soul, whether it be to a friend or to a partner, to a lover, that's very important. And to hear I love you is wonderful and it makes you feel good. But if that then doesn't follow through into their actions, then that for me means you've got to sit down and have a good hard think about your situation and yourself, and putting value on yourself and saying, is this what I want? Am I worth more than this? And that is really, really hard. And it means you've got to dig deep. And we've both done it a lot, haven't we?
A lot. Yeah. And, I had a conversation recently with someone that sort of said that their partner they'd been with them for a very long time, and that their partner had not ever said that they loved them. But I said, well, you need to look at her actions. What her actions tell you. And this person had done so much for my friend. And I said, I think she just is struggling to find the time, the place in her head and her heart to talk to one another for it to come up and out of her mouth.
Yeah.
And give her time, stand back from it, because in reality all of her actions are about just how much she respects and loves you.
Yeah.
And actually, again, that I would prove to be right. And it's a burden I bear. But that conversation I had with that person gave them some thinking space, and it resulted in those two people having a bit of a heart to heart. And not long after that, his partner turned to him one day just out of the blue and just said, I do love you. And boom, it happened. Yeah.
True words, wise words. And so many people are commenting and saying, I'm sat here nodding my head with my mouth open. It's who we are.
I'm glad people resonate to people. We're not that daft after all, Tony.
No, it's not just us. It's not just us. And when we rule the world, we'll put all these things right.
Well,
we will, and we will rule the world at some point. The last one. What is the worst that could happen if I let go of things that no longer serve me? Ooh, this is an ooh moment, isn't it, Anabel?
Ooh, it is. That's also the noise I make when I open the Prosecco as well.
Yeah. Can I just start on this one, because it's something a lot of people watching know I am a medium and I am a spiritualist and I am deeply religious. But one thing that comes through time and time again when I'm giving messages to people is, if you are in a situation that is no longer serving you and driving you forward in your life and your growth, step away from it. And not just a situation. If there are people in your life who are holding you back or holding you still, which is almost as bad, and are not giving you the space and the time and the energy to grow and move yourself forward, I'm not saying cut them off. I never say cut them off. Spirit world never say cut them off. But what they say is push them back. I've talked about that inner circle. Put them somewhere on the outskirts. Still have an engagement with them. Still have a relationship with them. But don't let them be at that point where they have that influence over your life to hold you back and keep you static and stunt your personal growth. Because something I've noticed since I first met Anabel, and it's partly down to her and partly down to me finally being happy with myself, and like we said at the beginning, having that love for yourself and that kindness to yourself, I have grown so much as a person since those I didn't let those situations and those people, some work colleagues, some friends, some even family members, have that influence over my life whereby I felt stifled as a person.
Can I just say, Tony, I think it was that you became braver in showing the world who you really truly are. You've always been that person, that beautiful person. You were just hiding it, and you were hiding it. You are. You've always been a fabulous person to be around. Always.
Oh,
even
God,
in the awful days when we worked for somebody that was not always very kind and would try to whip up as much animosity as they possibly could.
Yes.
You were always a beautiful person to be around. And my observation, and with the benefit of that wonderful thing called hindsight, is that what I know to have been happening was that you were hiding your true self out of all of the insecurities that we all have as human beings. And actually what's happened is you have come to the front now. You're ready to be you and to show the world who you are, and that's courageous.
It is.
And the worst didn't happen, did it? The worst didn't happen. The best happened.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It is that fear about, if I strip away this mask. Sorry, the washer's just decided to do its spin.
Washing's going to be done.
If I rip away this mask, is there going to be more pain for me? That's the hardest thing. And I think the worst that could happen is people step away from you. And what actually, the fear of that happening holds you back and stifles you. And something else that I came through with this spiritual enlightenment that I had was, then those people weren't meant to be in your life. No matter.
Very true.
I was taught, it's online, so I'm not divulging anything. I was doing a service the other day, and a gentleman said to me, actually it was yesterday, a conversation I had with Libby Cook, who is a wonderful person, absolutely wonderful person. And he said, I feel so alone because my relatives have turned away from me. What can I do? And I said, you're never alone. You are never truly alone, because you have spirit around you. You have a relationship with whatever higher power you believe in, if you believe in one. And you will always have a family around you of one sort or another. A guy called Armistead Maupin, who is an incredible writer and an incredible activist for all things LGBTQ+. He's amazing. He said in his autobiography, which is called My Logical Family, you have your biological family, which is your blood, and then you always find your logical family, which are the people who fit in your life. And they may not be blood at all, but they are in your life. And that is an incredible thing to understand. And it is so true, because even if you have a revelation and you come out as gay, spiritual, whatever it is you come out as being you, and people can't cope with that, sometimes it's just that they need time. So they may step away from you for a period of time till they can reflect on what your revelation has made them feel about themselves, which I think is an important thing, because I've never hidden who I am since I came out at the age of 30. I've never lied about who I am. I've always come out as I am a gay man who has an amazing son, an amazing husband, an amazing family who support me. But even my family needed time to reflect, and a bit of time to breathe and to absorb what I'd said to them. But now they love me, they love my husband, they love everything about me, and they love the fact that I'm now me. So that was my story. So there you go. And I will now hand over to Anabel because I'm welling up.
Okay. Well done, Tony. That was lovely. Thank you for sharing that. So the question was, what is the worst that could happen? Tony, we used to have this conversation at work, didn't we? And I used to say to you, look out the window, is the world still turning? And if your world, what is your world, what you've just described, you know, your son, your husband and your family, if all of that is still turning, then the very worst that you've just thought about really isn't the worst.
No.
So I think and again, it's still in my experience, but what can hold me back and has held others back in their life is we focus too much on the worst that could happen, and we don't actually think about what's important. And so if we can identify what's important, that family, that bubble that you've just described is what's important to you, it can help us gain perspective on what the worst is. So it's important that we understand what our priorities are, we put things into perspective, and then we can start the journey of letting go of those fears, letting go of the things that are holding us back, busting those barriers, so that when the worst does happen, it's not the worst. We can cope with it, we can reach out to people, and we can grow, and we can learn, and we can move forward. So what is the worst that could happen? That if I let go of those things, they would no longer serve me. And I'm really connecting up now with what you were talking about there, Tony. It's about if somebody isn't adding value to your life. I've said this to you a lot, and I think it's the one thing we don't always agree on, but I'm a firm believer, if somebody's not adding value to your life, then you've got to let them go. You do have sometimes to cut the ties. They may come back, you should be open to that. But don't pull around in your life. Do not try and bring with you in your life what essentially is, for the want of a better phrase, but dead wood, because it will hold you back. It will hold you back in what is your journey. And once you face the fear and you let go of those things that are dragging you down, that are holding you back, it's incredibly liberating. You just watch it float away, just like dead wood in water. It just floats away, it goes away, because you realize that what is important is that bubble, that list of priorities, and the worst may have happened. That person's left your life now, and yet your world is still turning. These are hard. We're talking about it in quite a profound way, but I know from experience and accept that when you're in the moment, it's difficult to see that kind of clarity. You and I are talking like everything's so simple, it's so black and white. I often say, we live our life in colour, and you know, it's gonna, woulda, shoulda, coulda, if, but, maybe, ooh, what if we did? And that's where we tend to spend most of our lives living, in all of that colour. But actually, when we take a step back, when we think about what is important, where are our priorities, what are my values, what are my actions, what am I responsible for, you start to get that kind of level of clarity. And then you need the courage pill, that big breath to take that first important step.
I agree, because if I can just share, when I first met Anabel, we worked
when
together.
I was 22.
When she was 22 and still is 22. I remember us being frantic and absolutely working from, well, sometimes 10, 11 hours a day.
Easily.
We were really manic at our laptops, stressed to death. And Anabel would be at the most anxious, uptight, wound up. And we just both at different times had this enlightenment of, that's work. We work to live. We don't live to work. And we both at different points came to that realization of, well, no, that's our 9 to 5. That pays our bills and enables us to have and maintain that bubble we've just been talking about of what's really important. And it is about that finding that balance in your life where you engage with everything that you need to move you forward in your personal growth. And yeah, you need a little bit of money to do that. But these things that we were stressed about, getting migraines, not eating properly, being so wound up about, suddenly started to feel about this big, didn't they? And I have seen such a huge change in Anabel over the last, I would say, about 4 or 5 years, where all these things have suddenly stopped being the center of the universe, and there's been that huge shift in your outlook. There really, really has. I've seen you grow so much as a spiritual person in the last few years because of different things that have come into your life and given you that perspective.
Yeah, and I recognise that, Tonya, and I'm a firm believer in the sense that we become what we are surrounded by. We emulate, we're human beings, so we emulate what we surround ourselves by. And I've made a decision, when going right back to that first question about taking responsibility for my actions, my choices, to surround myself with different people and do different things.
Yeah.
And it made me feel better about me. It gave me more breathing space. So we've kind of come full circle there, haven't we?
We have actually got some engagement from somebody. If you want to ponder,
yeah,
how do you start trusting people again when they've treated you like rubbish for most of your life? Julie, I know Julie quite well, so I'd be interested in your take on that to start with.
So how can you start trusting people again when they've treated you like rubbish? So I'm going to challenge you, Julie, and it's a question to ask yourself, but I don't quite understand why you would want to trust again. So they've clearly hurt you more than once. Somebody, once they've hurt you, have they changed? Let's be clear, you will not change them ever. You are not responsible for them. They are responsible for themselves. And therefore they are responsible for their behavior toward you. Why should you trust them? Well, actually, they should be asking themselves what it is that they can do if they want your trust. How will they earn your trust? And I wouldn't start a relationship again with somebody who has hurt you by asking myself, how will I trust you? I would, if I had to have a relationship with that person, because maybe they're family, I don't know. But I'd be saying, what is it that you can do?
Sorry, Julie's just clarified. She doesn't mean trust them again. She means how can she just trust generally?
Right, okay. So I think in that, then we come right back to what we were talking about earlier, in that you learn to trust people's actions, not their words. And it's a real hard lesson to accept, because we as human beings, we listen here and we tend to engage this here. But what we don't do is always listen with our hearts and then engage these. So, look at a person's actions and ask yourself a really clear question. Is their actions positive in the world? Has it made me feel good? Have they helped me grow? Have they given me more clarity, more knowledge, more understanding? Or as a result of their actions, do I feel hurt? Am I angered? Not in a positive way. Anger isn't always a bad thing, but if their actions are hurting you, then my advice would be take a step back from that person, and they're not somebody perhaps you should trust necessarily at this time.
I would agree. I would agree exactly with what Annabelle's just said, Julie. It's about taking time with somebody and how do you feel around them. And something I would say to you, Julie, as well is, and this is where Anabel and myself come from a different slant on things. I've been hurt by people. Anabel knows my life, and she knows what people have done in my life to cause me and my husband upset. And while you're holding on to that anger, that hurt, that negativity that people have imposed on you by their actions and words and deeds and thoughts even, while you're holding on to that, you're judging everybody else by that measure. So you're waiting for them to behave in that way. And that can cloud you sometimes. If you forgive those people, and that's a very, very hard thing to do, to forgive the person, but not the actions. The two different things there. Those people that have hurt you, send out your blessings to them and say, I wish you the best in life, but I can't ever forgive you for what you forgive your actions towards me. Then what I found in my life was, once I'd let go of that, again, like we talked about earlier, it's this release. All that dead wood that you've had in your head and your heart floats away from you. And then you can start judging people on their own merits, not by, well, somebody's hurt me in the past. How you
achieved by somebody else, yeah.
Yeah. So you can stop that comparison, and suddenly that trust it's not easier to do, but you have more clarity, and you learn to trust somebody by their own actions, not by what's happened to you previously, if that makes any sense at all, because I'm not sure it does. But it's only been my experience. I found that's been so much easier to move forward in my life, because the negativity that's generated by the way people have treated you holds you in one place. It holds you back in that moment in time when whatever happened. And you can't move forward from that situation. So yeah, does that make sense, Anabel?
It makes sense to me, Tony. I'm just wondering if there's any more feedback on that.
Reverend Nick Brown says it so does. Well, I wasn't sure, Nick, sorry. It was just, like I said, and Julie's just said, thank you so much. That's been very helpful. And yeah, Stacey's just picked up on the point. The way I realized that, Julie, is learn lessons from that. Yeah. It's a reflection on them. So yeah, I completely get that. And Julie, thank you, Tony. I understand that I need to forgive, but not to forget. Yeah, that's it, absolutely. And the other important point that Stacey made there was to learn the lesson, because in every experience we have in life, there is a lesson to be learned. And if we don't learn that lesson, then we're doomed to repeat that action again, if that makes sense. Again, without going into detail, there was a situation Anabel and I were talking about, which was happening to Anabel over many, many years. And she was just repeating the same mistake over and over again, and attracting the same sort of people who were treating her in the same way as this person had been treating her. And it was, there was those hard discussions that I had about, well, if you engage with this, you're going to repeat that action over and over again, and you're going to feel the same way about yourself over and over again. And since you've made that break, it's been a lot clearer in your life, hasn't it, Anabel?
Incredibly clear. And so I kind of think to myself, why didn't I do that sooner? But you weren't forgive myself for it. I wasn't in the right place. I wasn't prepared to be open enough to learn that lesson. And I can't, don't have a time machine, else I would be 22. So of course I am. It is just about accepting that is my journey, and that's what I needed to go through.
Yeah, because what I always say is, I've been through some really horrible things in my life, really horrible. So's Anabel. But when I look back on my life, which I do frequently, without all those little dots and all those points in my life, I wouldn't be this person. and I wouldn't have my wonderful son, and I wouldn't have my husband, and I wouldn't have the friendship of the people I have around me now, like Anabel, like Jean. Yeah, Nick's just put an interesting point. The old way of saying that is love the sinner but not the sin, which is the same thing. It is release that person but not their actions. And Julie said, not able. I understand where Anabel is coming from. So yeah. Good.
Nice to speak to you, Julie.
Julie's somebody I know and love dearly. She's got lessons to learn, as we all have, but she's learning them. She's learning them, and it's wonderful to watch her journey, actually. It really is. If anybody has any other questions or any other points or any issues in your lives that you would like us to cast our wise eyes over, I need a break. Please drop me a message and we will do more of these, because I have absolutely loved this 3/4 of an hour we've spent together, and it's something completely different than the other stuff I do, which is nice. It is nice sometimes to just venture out and do something a little bit different. So again, thank you so much, Anabel, for...
No, thank you, Tony.
And thank you to everybody who's engaged. Thank you to all of you for watching and choosing to spend this time with us, because I know there is probably lots of other things you could have been doing with 3/4 of an hour other than sit and listen to us procrastinate about things. What's that, Nick? I'll put it up on screen and we can read it together. The spaghetti of life, it's blooming jumbled mess sometimes and makes a mess of you. But as you learn to jug out the ends and take control and manage it, it's sometimes tasty. I like that. That's a good philosophy of life. Life is a bowl of spaghetti.
It certainly is.
Very messy eating it, but it's a wonderful journey. It really is a wonderful journey. So, yes, thank you so much. Please show your love for Anabel. And I've no doubt you will see more of her in the coming weeks, because I've really enjoyed this. Even if you just go through more of your cards, because that was wonderful. But, stay on the broadcast, and I'll talk to you in a bit.
Okay, bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye. Thank you.